Hey, you guys may know that I am really Mr. 30-06 when it comes to hunting. But did you know I've killed over a dozen deer with a 223? Is it really enough? Guy Miner here from UltimateReloader.com. Today we're going to be talking 223 and deer hunting. Is it really enough cartridge? And where that is coming from is because I live here in the state of Washington, and according to the state regs, you cannot legally hunt deer here with a 223. So make sure you check your regulations and before you go out and try this. So we know as the 223 is also a version of the 5.56 military round. They showed up in the 1950s and got introduced to our troops in Vietnam in the 1960s. Mixed reactions over there. There was some pluses and minuses. The military was looking for a smaller, lighter, easier recoiling gun that would allow you to carry a lot more ammunition for the same amount of weight. And they achieved that, but whether or not it was effective was a whole different thing, and that's a different story we're not getting into today. It has been improved significantly since those days. I got introduced to the 5.56 in the Marine Corps. Went in there and handed me an M16A1, had me go out to the range. We qualified with him. I thought it was pretty cool. I had to admit, I was a little surprised at the tiny size of it. I had never messed around with one before I was in the Marines. We got the M16A2. It became a much better, longer range cartridge with a lot more thump with that somewhat heavier bullet. Years later, I got into law enforcement work, and what do you know, wound up with an AR-15 patrol rifle in 223. That's where I started really appreciating it as a deer cartridge. Yeah, I had to often take out deer that were in the city limits, had been hit by a car, attacked by a dog, fallen on the ice and hurt themselves. There was no way these things were going to survive, so I would get called to come and put them out of their misery. And yes, a lot of times the meat went to an actual homeless shelter, which I thought was a pretty good deal. I found out that the AR-15 with its 223 and just a 55 grain soft point put deer down very quickly. And I was impressed. Sometimes I had a very short range shot, sometimes it was out there more at like 50 yards or so. Either way, the AR seemed to work and the 223 seemed to work. But that's not hunting. I want to talk about the AR-15 and or the 223 in general for hunting. So I got a hold of a fellow that I knew had done an awful lot of hunting with his 222 and 223 rifles and got some input from him for this video. I got a hold of Tom Brownlee. Some of you may know him from online appearances, and he has done a lot of hunting with the AR, well, not with the AR, but with the 223. He prefers a bolt action rifle, which I completely understand. Tom gave me a little quote here I could use. He says, "I like Spear Gold Dots, 55 grains for shoulder shots on deer, or the Barnes 55 grain TTSX. When he goes for hogs, he likes to use nothing but brain shots, and he relies on Hornady's 55 grain VMAX for those very quick kills that he gets on that." You can see here he's got a fallow deer with that pretty wild paint job on his rifle there. I like that. Take a quick look here at some of the different offerings that the factories have got. These are intended for deer hunters. I would imagine they would also work real well for hog hunters. Hornady offers both a 50 and a 55 grain in their Superformance with their CX bullet, which is a copper alloy bullet that has good penetration. They offer the ECX for the European market. That's what the E is for. Remington Core-Lokt 62 grain bonded soft point. That should work out pretty well. Federal Fusion. I have a lot of respect for the Fusion ammunition, and their 62 grainer again should work out really well on deer. Federal's Trophy Copper 55 grain, another one specifically intended for deer hunting, and the Barnes 55 grain Vortex rifle. All those are high velocity hunting cartridges intended for use on deer. I always thought of the 223 as a varmint cartridge, but nope, the factories have latched onto this use of it on deer, and they are producing the ammo for it. You can also hand load and do that. These hand loading bullets that I took a look at that attracted my eye for sure. 50 grain Hornady CX, the Barnes 55 grain TTSX, and the Sierra 65 grain Game King. Those all look like pretty good choices to me. I have to admit, I have not used all those. When I was on patrol duty and putting down the deer, just used plain old 55 grain soft points or a bonded version thereof. This chart is way too big to do in a hurry. So if you need to look at it longer, go ahead and pause your machine and take a look at it. There's a lot of information on there. What I did is I compared the 223 with a couple of other different hunting cartridges, the 6.5 Creed and the 300 Win Mag. And some guys are saying 300 Win Mag for deer? Actually, it's not uncommon out west where you may have one hunting rifle and you're going to be going for elk, deer, bear, whatever, and just using the same rifle for all that. It's a fairly common choice. Was in the past. I think that slipped away somewhat, and the Creedmoor, because it's an extremely popular deer cartridge these days, and for good reason. Light recoil and very effective. So let's take a look at some other graphics that will help explain all the numbers that are on this chart. First of all, velocity. Interestingly, all three of these cartridges came in between about 3,000 feet per second and about 3,250 or so. They were all right in there at the muzzle. Now, we took them all the way out to 500 yards, and you can see that there's quite a drop-off. The little 223, that 55 grain bullet, is just not hanging in with the 120 or the 165 that we used in the bigger cartridges. And so those cartridges have a distinct advantage in velocity out there at longer ranges. Energy was a real truth teller to me. Some folks don't really like thinking about the energy that a rifle cartridge develops, but I think it's important to help with some power comparisons. And as you can see, there was quite a difference at the muzzle between the 223, the 6.5, and the 300 Winchester Magnum. And there was also a very big difference all the way out there at 500 yards. I would not be thinking about that 223 as a deer cartridge at 500 yards. That's me personally. I like it at closer ranges where it still has some decent velocity and energy. Trajectory was surprisingly close, out to about 300 yards. Zero them at 200. They drop a little bit at 300. Easy to make those shots though. Nothing that you really have to do any kind of dialing for or anything. You can make those hits holding on hair. 400, 500, and beyond, there gets to be a huge difference. And the 300 Win Mag and the 6.5 Creed really outshine the 223 at those longer distances. Conclusion on this short video is that yes, of course, the 223 can be used for deer hunting and hunting other similar sized game. Of course it can. There are thousands of hunters who do so successfully every year. It does a fine job if you do a good job of shooting. Select your ammo and your bullet with care. Avoid the varmint bullets that blow up on impact. That's what they're supposed to do. Vaporized rock chucks and little prairie dogs and things like that. And they are not for penetrating deep into the vitals on a deer or other big game animal or medium game animal. Place your shots well. Go for the vitals. Tom said he really liked the headshots on the hogs, and I know that a lot of times we'll be looking for a shoulder shot or a shot into the vitals, and be looking for a broadside so we don't have to expect a lot of penetration from these little 223 bullets. If you're using a 223 this coming season, best of luck to you. I really appreciate hearing some comments, so drop a comment and we'll have a discussion about the 223 for deer hunting. Thank you. It's time to wrap this up.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, we're on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, where we've got unrestricted content, and Instagram. Make sure to follow us on all those channels. Ultimate Reloader also has a commercial solutions division serving law enforcement, the military, and the gun industry. We have some unique capabilities, including a comprehensive suite of recoil testing and evaluation capabilities, trigger profiling, and more. If you're interested in custom rifles like what we build here on the channel or gunsmithing services, you're going to want to go to rifles.ultimatereloader.com and get on the wait list. If you want to learn lucrative gunsmithing like what I show here on the channel, including building custom rifles and Cerakote plus a whole bunch more, you're going to want to check out the Colorado School of Trades, schooloftrades.edu. Thanks again for watching.